What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the Thomas Gallery, and today I want to talk about the science of 10,000 hours. Now, I've heard this expression before, 10,000 hours, this number 10,000 hours, and what it means. I've heard it before, and I was, over the years, I was thinking about this concept of 10,000 hours, and basically what it means is, in order to be, well, from what it says, in order to become an expert at something, one must practice that particular thing for up to 10,000 hours to become what is called an expert. Okay? An expert is simply someone who has proficient knowledge in a skill, okay? Or in a specific field, okay? Who has overall knowledge, okay? And that knowledge has catapulted that person to a point where others seek their knowledge of that particular field, okay? So when someone says this person is the leading expert in astrophysics, what that pretty much says is that person has enough knowledge in that particular field that their ideas, their opinions are taken as such where it can be followed and verified, and you can pretty much go on their word. Whether or not that's totally true is another matter. But anyway, this concept, I wanted to find out where this concept of 10,000 hours came from. Who came up with the idea of 10,000 hours and why they thought of that number 10,000 hours, okay? Now, I'm going to give where it came from, and I'm going to give my own opinion about it, okay? So just start from the beginning where it came from. The idea of 10,000 hours came from an author by the name of Malcolm Gladwell, okay? He's an author. He writes books on the kind of like overall the mentality of success, where success comes from, how do people become successful, how do people become an expert at something, these type of mental things. And he came up with the idea based on research that he said he came across, where scientists came up with this idea of, well, actually, here's an actual quote. Researchers have settled on what they believe is the magic number for true expertise. That number is 10,000 hours. And I thought about it. It's a round number. And I thought to myself, is that actually true? Now, from what I believe, now, to be honest with you, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, I don't agree with it being 10,000 hours. I personally think it actually varies on that particular field, that particular thing you're doing. Because some things take more to learn than others. So the number would obviously vary. It wouldn't be just 10,000 hours. The number will obviously vary. Anyway. But I think I think I understand the spirit of what he was trying to convey. In my opinion, I believe he was trying to convey that if someone endeavors to master something, I mean, the number 10,000 is a large number. And when someone says 10,000 hours, you got to think, wow, that's a lot. That's a lot of hours. And it is. Because there's 24 hours in a day, 365 days in a year, 365 and 1/4 days in a year. So 10,000 hours must really be a lot of hours. And it is. So it must mean be a lot of years. And no, it's not. But the idea of something taking 10,000 hours to understand, to master, to comprehend, means that that person is willing to put a lot of time into that particular field to master it. Now, I thought to myself, how much is 10,000 hours? Like, if you actually do the math, how long is 10,000 hours? Is it a long time? So I did the math. I looked it up and I did the math myself. Because I wanted to find out if he says it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert at something, then how long is 10,000 hours? Okay? So through my calculations and through looking it up, anybody can look this up, it is 10,000 hours is exactly 1.142 years. Okay? 1.142 years. Or in a nutshell, 1.14 years, 1.14 years, which is basically a little over a year. Okay? That's not even a fourth of the year. I mean, it's a year and not even a fourth of the year. So it's not even a year and 3 months. 1.142 is not even a year and a quarter. It's less than a year and a quarter. Okay? So what he's saying is, if someone takes a year and I would say a year and 1 or 2 months, okay? Take 1 full year and January and February, and you do nothing but practice a particular thing, you can become an expert, because that's what 10,000 hours will equal to. 10,000 hours is 1.142 years. That's less than a year and a quarter. Okay? So, gotta hide it home. So, with that being the case, would it actually take 1.142 years to become an expert, or 10,000 hours to become an expert? In my opinion, no. I believe that number is subjective. I don't know what research he's referring to, because the quote says researchers have settled on what they believed. The magic number of true expertise is 10,000 hours. Now, sorry about that. The problem is, in that statement alone, he said researchers have settled on what they believe. There's two different ideas. Researchers don't deal in belief. Okay? Researchers have beliefs beforehand. Okay? They believe something is going to work or not work, then they go to test it. Okay? Then once you have settled on something, there's no belief. Okay? Once you settle something, a settlement means you know, not what you believe. So I believe that statement was a bit of conjecture. This is my opinion. That's just my belief. Okay? I don't know, like I said, I don't know what researchers that he's referring to, but in that statement, I believe it was a bit of hyperbole. Okay? I believe he was engaging in a bit of hyperbole. But nonetheless, I understand the spirit of his statement. Like I said, I believe what he is trying to convey. Okay, what I believe he was trying to convey was the huge amount of time and effort that goes into a practice. Because, like I said, a year, I mean, depending on what you're doing. Because I could say, how long does it take to become an expert at a video game? Does it take a year? I could say from personal experience, no. I've played video games and mastered them in less than a year. So that's one instance where it does not take 10,000 hours to be an expert at a game. However, I believe if you took 10,000 hours to master a game, you'll be very, very good at that game. Probably better than most. But there are certain things in life that do not take 10,000 hours to master. It don't take 10,000 hours to master a phone. You get a new phone, you do not take a year and 1.42. You do not take 1.142 years to master a new cell phone. You don't. You don't take 1.142 years to master a new TV. Think about it. How many things does it actually take to master with 10,000? I mean, how many things you know it would take 10,000 hours to master? Now, there are things that would take 10,000 hours to master. I agree. Like, if you want to become a master at a martial arts, or if you want to become a master at boxing, or you become a master at sports, yes, I do believe that it would take more than 10,000 hours to become a master at a sport. Yes, it would be like if you want to be an artist or a painter. I've been an artist since the age of 2, and I'm 34 years old. That's 32 years of practice. That's way more than 10,000 hours. So I believe that the number 10,000 is subjective. I understand the message. I agree with the message. The message is, I believe, is correct. The pure dedication, the amount of time it would take, yes. It takes a lot. He's saying it takes a lot of time and effort and energy into becoming a master at something. I agree. I do not, however, agree with the idea that it takes simply 10,000 hours. That is not a magic number. No. You can't say researchers, you can't use words like researchers, settled, believe, and magic in the same sentence. Those 4 terms will contradict. Researchers don't deal in magic. They don't deal in belief. Researchers deal in settling and science, and they deal in objectivity, not subjectivity. 10,000 hours is not a lot of time. That's a little over a year. Okay? It's a little over a year. But like I said before, from a inspirational perspective, I can understand why he would say 10,000 hours. It's a nice solid round number. It's a large number. 10,000 is still a large number. Don't mistake me. That's a large number. 10,000 hours is a lot of hours. However, depending on what you are practicing, 10,000 hours can either be too much or too little. I mean, no one becomes a master at, like, what architect do you know became a master in a year and 2 months? That's 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours is basically a year and 2 months. What architect do you know became a master in a year and 2 months? What teacher do you know became a master in a year and 2 months? What painter you know became a master in a year and 2 months? Now, excuse me, anyone who plays a video game, how long did it take to master that video game? Did it take 10,000 hours? Did it take less than 10,000 hours? Or did it take more than 10,000 hours? You buy a new phone. You've never had the phone before in your life. You never seen it before. You grab the phone. How long did it take to become an expert at that phone? Did it take less than 10,000 hours? Did it take exactly 10,000 hours? Or did it take more than 10,000 hours? Think about that. And like I said, I understand the spirit of what he is saying. I understand it. I agree with the spirit, with the essence of what he's trying to say. It does take time, and it takes a lot of time in some cases to become what is considered an expert. Because in order to be considered an expert, that means that you are better at that particular thing than anyone else is at that particular thing. Michael Jordan can be considered an expert at basketball because when he played, he was better at basketball than anyone that he played with. So if you want to talk about basketball, he would be considered an expert. You want to talk about technology? You talk to Bill Gates. You talk to Mark Zuckerberg. talk to, well, when he was alive, talk to Steve Jobs. If you want to be an expert at painting, you would talk to Da Vinci. You would talk to Picasso, Basquiat, Michelangelo. You would talk to them. Those would be considered experts because they were better at their particular field than anyone else was at their particular field. You want to talk about science? You talk to Einstein. You talk to Isaac Newton, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Those would be considered experts. Like, they consider Neil deGrasse Tyson, they consider him now an expert in astrophysics. They call him the leading expert in astrophysics. That means that his information is such that you will go to him first before you go to anybody else. Now, did that take less than 10,000 hours? Exactly 10,000 hours? Or more than 10,000 hours? Think about that. So, the essence of 10,000 hours, I can understand. But the science of 10,000 hours, the actual knowledge of understanding what 10,000 hours represents, I would have to disagree. Although I understand it, I would have to respectfully disagree with with that exact number. I believe that particular idea is subjective. I believe objectively it falls flat on their face. It can be objectively scientific. If you were to put it to a scientific test, it can be disproven in a matter of minutes. But I understand it from a pure motivational standpoint. I understand it. If you want to talk about motivation, I get it. But if you want to talk about actually breaking it down and meticulously putting it through rigorous testing scientifically, I would have to ask for a different test to go with that. That's all. Anyway, but I appreciate the information. I enjoy it. I understand it, and I understand what he means. But I have my thoughts about it. So anyway, but that does not mean you shouldn't stop. Now, go forward. Hold on. Sorry. Get your 10. Don't just because I said that don't mean you just stop. Get your 10,000 hours in. I'll play this. This is what I would do. If I'm going to use that number, 10,000 hours, I would say that 10,000 hours should be the minimum of hours you put into becoming an expert at something. That's what I would say. If I was ever going to use the term 10,000 hours, I would correct it and say that this is actually what I would say. I would amend the quote. I would say researchers have settled on what they believe is the magic number for expertise. Then I would say a minimum of 10,000 hours. That's what I would say. Because that would intimate that person, to become an expert, would have to at least have a year and 2 months under their belt. Like anything less than that, we ain't talking about expert. If you talking about anything less than a year and 2 months, we ain't talking about that. Because 1.25 is a year and 3 months. That's a year in up to January, February, March. A year in 1.142, that's less than a year and a quarter. That should be the minimum of time put into something to become what is considered an expert. That means, now this is my opinion. If I'm going to amend that statement, I would say a minimum of 10,000 hours. That means that before we consider you an expert for anything, do you have a year and 2 months in this particular field of consistent, like not just on and off? Do you have a minimum of 10,000 hours? I said 10,000 years. What am I talking about? Do you have a minimum of 10,000 hours consistent, like every day? Do you do that particular thing every single day for 10,000 hours straight, or 1.142 years. If you have that as a minimum requirement, a prerequisite, then we could talk about you being an expert in something. If not, then we might have to, talk about some things. But even then, that's still subjective because, like I said, it's just my belief. Because there's certain things that don't take that long to master. They don't take that long. You can figure out every single piece of a phone in a day, if not less. If all you do is grab the phone and do nothing but navigate through this phone every single day or every single hour, if you do nothing but navigate through this phone, you can master this phone in a day. That's less than 10,000 hours. That's 24. Actually, 23 hours, 59 minutes, whatever. You get it. But people can buy a new phone and master that phone in less than a day. They can know every single part of that phone in less than one day. Okay? But I believe what he's saying is like the heavy stuff, like we talking about like math and science and things of that nature, or sports. If you're talking about those things, I believe that you should have a minimum of 10,000 hours in that particular field to be considered an expert. Minimum. If you ain't meet that requirement, we can't call you an expert. We can't see you in a field of expertise in that. Because there are too many intricacies in that particular field. There are too many nuances in basketball, in football. There are too many mental hurdles you got to go over and through and under to really understand the nuances of a sport alone. Just of a sport. There's so many things you got to understand about a sport that it would take you a minimum of 10,000 hours to become an expert. You want to become a black. No one ever became a black belt in martial arts in a year and 2 months. I don't know anybody. I don't know any martial artist who became an expert at their particular discipline in a year and 2 months. I don't know of any. So that takes years. That should be a minimum of 10,000 hours. Minimum. You want to become a computer technician, that would take a minimum of 10,000 hours. You want to become a carpenter? A minimum of 10,000 hours. You want to become an electrician? A minimum of 10,000 hours. You want to become a teacher? A minimum of 10,000 hours. That's what it should be. It should be a minimum of 10,000 hours to be considered an expert. That's just my opinion. Okay, so I know I just ran it on for almost 25 minutes. So I just want to, just thank you all for listening. If you enjoy this, or if you don't enjoy this, if you have an opposing view, or if you agree, comment down below. Let me know how you feel about it. Okay? Share this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Share this video. Alright? I'll catch you all later. Peace.